Welcome. We want to combine some of the things that we've been learning, and we want to do a system that is fully functional, which is our login system. If you remember, there's this system that I showed you once, where it was just, I think, LG SYS. This was the system that I showed you. And we could actually create our information and get certain things done. So we want to use the same concept that we've got for this, but we want to play around with it slightly so that we get a different look and appearance to it. I'll try and make sure that everything we do in this video fits, and then as it fits, I'll try and include everything that we need to learn for this. So it will eventually be a long video, but hopefully we can learn. According to this system, here are some of the files that we've got. We've got database connection, we've got our index, we've got our top section, we've got our bottom section, we've got our login. Okay, with our login, we have our PHP with some if statements, whereby we would want to select specific details from different aspects. So we will go through this code. We'll also go through that code similar to what we've seen before, and we'll also create our database that we'll be able to work with and use for our learning. So let's actually go through the database that exists, PHP my admin, and then we'll use that as a guide to what we are intending to do. So we've got our folder that exists already, and we want to put just the login section of our page, or the login part of our document. So we can create a new folder, and then this folder we'll call it login, so that we have a login platform or system that will be working with. So with our login system, in this particular instance, I don't think I had a database, but we can create our database based on the content that we've got here. So let's actually start with the content that we would need. First of all, we'll need to have, I think this, the sign up gives us an idea of what we need. We need a username, we need an email, we need a password, we need a repeat password. So at the same time, we might also need a name and a surname for this individual, and that then makes our database complete. So the first thing we need is our database. Let's just create a new text file. We save this file in our folder where we are doing all this, so that at least we have a copy of what we are doing. So these will be our notes, and we have a list of events or a list of things that we need to have present. So the first thing we need to do is our folder, where contains all files to be used in our system. Would also need a database, contains the elements to be checked. And then outside our database would need to design this looks into the page and its appearance. Okay, so I think these are the key elements that we want to work with. And then we'd also need to have the following attributes, which is this one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Okay. At the same time now, let's actually create a few folders. So our folders in this particular instance will then have or can have the following. We can have the first folder being includes. We can have the next folder being our CSS. We can have the next folder being our images. Like that. So this then makes our page, or this then helps us to have our page. Outside here, we then need to have these three elements, which is index, header.php, footer.php. So let's create file save as. We then want header, and then save as type, we make it PHP. We click on save. We also need a footer. Save as type, we change that to PHP, and then we make that a footer. At the same time, we also need our index. New text file, go to file, save as index.php. No, we don't put a dot if we're using Visual Code. So we click on save, and then we are good to go. So what we now need to do is the following. We now need to create our page or work with our page so that it displays the content and the context that we want to work with. And that then becomes our starting point for our content. And all we need to do, we need to call the two attributes that we've created, and that is include once include once, whereby we want the header and we want the footer. Okay, so given that, we can be able to get basic HTML code. Okay, that then becomes something we can work with. I come here, I put in my header this part I want for my footer. All right, we remove that. We also want, in that section, we want a head. In this section as well, we also want titles. Where we then want this to be our registration, or rather, let's just call it login system. Okay. At the same time, with our footer, we then want to just put the following, where this becomes a p tag, and with our p tag, we just want to put login system copyright and copy, then put 2022, like that. So we've got our content and our context there, and we can be able to then have this as our bottom of the page. And then at the same time, we then want to put a room for our links, where the first one will be a link, rel equals href equals, and then type equals, so this would want it to be a style sheet, this would want it to be text dash.css, then we are good to go. Okay, so as it stands, if we come back to our code, or if we, no, we actually haven't run it yet. So we go to localhost, we go to D25, we go to login. That is what we have so far. So everything seems to be on point. Maybe let's just add something to our heading, whereby we simply put h1 and h1, then this becomes login. Perfect. Perfect. So everything seems to be in order. Right. So for our login system, we've got the header, we've got the footer, but I think we've got something in between. Let's actually go back to our okay, now how am I doing this now? Okay, okay, let me just close these. I think I can reopen them because I was getting a bit confused. Yes. Okay, we've got our main content, which is this one, which I think we need to have the same setup with our own page. Maybe let's actually start opening only the pages that we want to work with, so that we can be able to build our content. Okay, so this is what we've got for our index.php. Let me also open that one. Okay, so what we would need to do now is to have this main, where our main then gives us the page that we want to work with. So main, and then main. I think let me also open my header so that I change something. I think this now needs to move from this point, and then we come to our main, and then we can build from there. Okay, so our header I think now is okay. We also need to let's work on the design mainly, and then we'll add the CSS once our design is in place. So the next thing we want to do is the following. We've just got some code there that we can put, but in our instance, we want to change some of the things slightly. What this is simply doing is it's a simple H tag we've looked at. We've now got our PHP script, and our PHP script checks for the following. We're saying if set, we have a session is equal to user ID, echo, you are logged in, else you are logged out. So in other words, we're then saying when we get to this particular instance, we want to be able to check whether a user is logged in or they are not. But in this particular instance, we don't need this as yet. We just need to design some of the things that we want to have, and then see how we can play around with it. So first thing we want is our form, and our form does the following, or will do the following. It'll have our login. We also want to have a second form for our register. And these forms should also have a method and an action. For each of the forms. So we copy that, we paste it there, and then this becomes our register, that then becomes our login. So for our login first, let's have the content that we want. We want to be able to have two inputs. We want to be able to have a button. We want to be able to have a forgot password. We also want to be able to have a register. So let's put that content, and we can be able to move on. So the first thing we want to do is put our p tag, and within our p tag we want to have an input tag where we want to type is equal to that. So we do three elements. This will change to a button because we would want a button as well. And then this becomes login. This becomes password. This becomes username. No, this becomes text. Sorry. So then that becomes the first bit. We then want to have another set of tags. We would want 2 anchor tags. Okay, this then becomes forgot. The next one becomes register. Okay, so we would want when a user forgets their password, we want them to be redirected to somewhere else. When a user needs to register, we need them to select on register, and then they are taken to the register aspect. So this then means, as it stands, we are done with the login section. Let's just save it and see what it has given us so far. So as it stands, we are good to go. We've got our login, we've got our username and our password, and then we've got our forgot and register. But forgot and register, they don't have a reference yet. So let's just put a reference where at least they will be visible as links. There we go. So our forgot and our register are now good to go. At the same time, let's also put a placeholder for each of these. Placeholder equals to username and placeholder equals to password. So as it stands, we have designed our page for the login, and we'll add more content as we are doing our database, because the next thing we want to do would be our database. But as it stands, we are just working with the design and some of the things that we need to see with or for our design. So this then becomes the basic shell of what we are hoping to achieve and to have. This for the button as well, let's actually put a type, and then with our type, let's call it submit. We are good to go. The next thing we want to have now is our register, and our register would be the same concept, but now we want to add a few more details. So according to what we had previously, we had a username, an email field, a password, a confirm password, and let's see what the last thing was. Oh, so these are the only things that we have, but I wanted to add the individual's name so that we have one extra field. So let's do the following for the rest. So that is for our username, that is for our email, that's for our name, that's for our password, that's for our confirm password, and then we need the last one for our button. So this becomes our button reference. Okay, so this button becomes register. and we then need to play around with the types. So this becomes password. This also becomes password. This becomes first name. This becomes email. This becomes username. Let's actually also add, I think let's also add the last name. Last name, like that. So in essence, we've got our context or our elements. Let's actually put placeholders. Our placeholders will then contain our username. Our placeholder will contain our email. Our placeholder will contain our first name. Our placeholder will contain our last name. Our placeholder will contain our password. And then the next one, placeholder, will contain our confirm password. Like that. So if we save, we can now view the contents of our elements. So we've got our register, we've got our password, sorry, we've got our login, we've got our register, where our login contains the username and the password, and then our register contains the username, email, first name, last name, password, confirm password. I think we might also need to have a link to return to our login in the event that we don't want to register. Or let's actually put it as a button and we say cancel. Let's actually put another button and we say cancel. Let's say we don't want to register. We clicked it, but that's not what we want to do. Cancel. So I want to type. Also want to type. This is submit. Submit. Perfect. So we've got login, we've got cancel, we've got our register. I think this pretty much suits what we might want to have. So at the same time now, we would need to maybe separate these values and have some sort of a way of actually managing or dealing with these two pages. And these pages would then be used for whatever access we want to have for our system. So as it stands, we might need to actually play around with them and see how they give us a result.
Verse number 5.
So on the one end, we've done our design and we've got information that we want. We now need to do our database design based on this particular design. As this lesson proceeds, or as we proceed with our lesson, I'm sure we can be able to do CSS that can improve this page so that it looks a bit more presentable. But I think as of now, we need to get into our database design. So we need a username, an email, first name, last name, password, and confirm password. Okay, so we'll then come here, we'll create a database. Let's create our database as login db. Let's just change that to UTF-8, which is the standard. We create our database, and then now we need to have a table, and our table should then contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements. We then call our table TBL users. We click on create, and then now we need to put elements within our users. The first element will be our primary key. Can make it 11. Click on go. At the same time, we don't want any now figures. We then call this one ID. The next one we can call it. Let's follow the chain that we've got here. Username, email, first name, last name. So the next one we call it username. The next one we call it email. The next one we call it first name. The next one we call it last name. The next one we call it password. And then the last one we call it date created. Okay, so for this last one we want it to be a date. For the next one we want to be a variable character. Last name, variable character for first name, variable character for email, variable character for username. The size, we want this to be 11. We want this to be 50. We also want the email to be 50. We want the first name to be 50 as well. Last name 50. Password 50. This one I don't think we need a size for it, for the date. So we've got our ID, username, email, first name, last name, password, and date created. So we click on save. Okay, so this problem comes with our primary key. Let's put it at 11. Click on go. Let's save. Okay, it's actually an element of our primary key. So let's just remove it for now. I think we can always set it. Click on save. Perfect. So it usually gives us that problem if we have not set our primary key properly. So let's see if we can change it. Let's have it auto increment. Alright, what else do we need? Attributes. I think we'll need to do it auto increment. That's fine. So it then makes it a primary key. The date created, let's change that. And let's actually put, there's a part where I think we can, yes, that's the default. We want the default, which is current timestamp. Let's just test it out to see if it gives us the timestamp. So let's just go to insert. We want to put a username. Let's say our username is software. Our email is software at student.school, like that. The first name is default. The last name is user. The password is software. Click on go. Okay, that's just a notification. Let's see if our table contains something. Yes, it does. So we just now have our user ID. We now have our ID, sorry. We now have our username. We now have our email. We have our first name, last name, password, and date created. So at least we can now get our information. We are good to go. And we would also need to reference these values from our PHP. So I think at this stage, our database is in order. Let's proceed, and we'll be working with this as our guideline. Okay, this becomes our guideline. We need a method. I think for each of the methods, let's put posts, and then the action for now is index.php, index.php. We click on save, and then now we are good to go. Right, if we refresh, not much changes. Okay, let's get into the next page. So I think we can safely say the index page we're done. The next page we want to look at is open file. We want our includes file. Right, so for our includes files, we had the following. In our includes, we had the database connection. So let's create that. We will not use that extension. Let's actually use our own. Go to D25, login, includes. Then we say con. We then put a .php, click on save, and now we want to put our connection settings. So what we would need is the connection plus some of the things that we want. So we can just use this as a reference point. First of all, we need to open our PHP, and then we need to create our connection, and then we need to put an if statement. So we put our PHP, and then we want to have a variable con equal to my SQL connect, where in my SQL connect we want to have the following details. The first detail is the local host, which gives us our connection. The next detail is our username. The next detail is our password. The next detail is our database, which is login or login DB, like that. From there, we then want our if statement. If it's not our connection, then we want to do the following. So if it's not the connection, we want to end the connection, or we want to close the connection, which simply means we want the following code. So it's die connection failed, and then we put a MySQL connect error. So we want to put die, and then within our die we want to put connection has failed. Connection to database failed. Okay. Like that. So what we have simply done is we've created a connection whereby we want to connect using MySQL I connect, and we want to connect to the local host whereby our username is root, our password is that, and then we've got our login database. If this connection is not true, we want to close the connection, and we need to state that we have an error with our connection to the database. So that's the first thing that we need to have. At the same time now, we would need to include this in the next aspect of our page, so that whenever we're using this or whenever we want to work with this, we can be able to call upon this and then get information based on what we are working with. So that's the thing that we'll look into next, so that we get to do and achieve a functional login system. So let's also open our index. No, we don't need the index. We need the header. We need to put a style sheet. If I will go to CSS, we then call this one styles.css. Click on save. Let's create that file and save it as styles. And then the save as type is .css. I just thought I could make it a bit neater. I can put a padding left. Let's make it 30 pixels. Let's put a margin. Let's put it at 15 pixels. Let's also put the font size. Let's put it at medium. And then let's put the font family. We'll pick that one. Click on save. Let's refresh. Perfect. 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 That is how our page now looks. Not too bad. Maybe the margin is too big since we've got a padding. Let's reduce the margin. Perfect. Perfect. I think it looks a bit better and we are good to go. We can always play around with the look, but I think for now we can work with something like that. So we now want to get into a little bit more work. You must excuse me for this particular lecture. I didn't quite prepare well, so we'll work with it as we go on the fly. Although that's a little bit on the dangerous side, because the moment we do that, we are running the risk of having a challenge whilst we're working on our work. But let's do as much as we can. So the next one is sign up, and this is what we want to work with. Let's maybe first study the code together, and then we see what this does. So what we are saying is the following. We want to have a PHP for our sign up, where the moment we've got our document pressed, let's say we click on register, and our register has been clicked. So what we're looking at is we've got a function called isSet to check whether a value has actually been given precedence or it has been used. We then want to post whatever is on the sign up submit page. At the same time, we then now need to require the database connection, and the database connection would then give us the file that we've got in our database connection. We then need to have a username, an email, and a password, and then we need to check each of those elements as we are working with them, so that we get to view what each element gives us. So before we actually create this file, let's work on some of the things that we need before we get to the sign up submit phase. So we'll need to go to the previous file, which in this case should be sign up. Right, so we've got submit, which is fine. On our page, which is this one, I think we put submit, so we are good to go. That's the type. We need the name, which is sign up submit, which is what we've got there. So we need to also name our sign up content. So I think we need to also name it as sign up submit, or let's actually give it a unique name. Let's say the name because we don't want to copy everything as it is. We call it register. Submit. And then this, we call it name is equal to cancel. I don't think we'll need to use it, but let's also just name it. So we want register submit. At the same time, we've also got names for each of these elements. So it's username, email, password, and repeat password. Okay, so let's do the same here. We want the name of each of these elements. This becomes confirm password. This becomes password. This becomes last name. This becomes first name. This becomes email. This becomes username. Right, so we might have confusion by having similar content in the place. No, I think it's fine. I think it's definitely fine. We won't really have that much of a challenge because the placeholder simply displays to the user, so I think would be okay. So we now need to create our include or sign up page. Let's see how we had actually put our include before. So it's just db connect. So let's also create a Signup.Inc.Php. But like we said, we want to rename our information where this becomes inc sign up. We save that, and then we want to do our PHP file. Where we have an if statement, our is set, and then we want a post, and then within our posts we want the name of the value, open and close brackets, and the name of our value is register submit. Else, like that. So with the little that we've done, here's what we are saying. We are now explaining our code as we do it. whereby we are saying to be able to sign up, we need to use a function called isSet to check whether our name that we're looking for has been given values. So our isSet pretty much gets our post method, which then looks for the value that is supposed to give us the element that we want to add to our database. So in other words, if we come back here, we click on register. What our page should then do is it checks whether a register has been clicked. The moment register has been clicked, it's supposed to post this information. So this, that, and that. So we must make sure that everything is in order, and then it will then take us to the content that is in here, and it's supposed to be posted within this database if we've done it properly. So that's what now we are then working on with our new page. At the same time, we've got more information there where we'll need to include the connection. We'll also need to put the variables for each element that we want to insert into our database. The next set of lines will not be quite relevant, and some of them we will not use for this portion of our learning. So let's work with line 5 to line 10 for now, and I'll be explaining what we need for each particular section. So the next thing we need now is we need a connection to our database. So we'll say require dbcon .php. What that simply does is it gets our database connection, and it uses it as we proceed with our design. It's actually dbh. No, I'm on the wrong platform. Sorry for that. Yes, it's dbcon.php.